Come on in, you guys. We got a brand new episode of Jimmy Rants in store for you here today. JimmyRants.com is the website, as always. If you want to engage live in the content, you got to go follow me. I'm over on Instagram Live. I am at Livin' Low Carb Man, LIVINLOWCARBMAN. Once you are there, you can engage live. And that's how we do this show Monday through Friday, 11 a.m. Eastern. We sometimes do a 5 p.m. one Monday through Friday, and sometimes on the weekend. Probably this weekend I will do some because I was pretty lax this week with the extra episodes. So go follow me, Livin' Low Carb Man, LIVINLOWCARBMAN. If you missed the live, we do simulcast also on my Facebook page. And today, for the first time on Jimmy Rants, we are simulcasting live straight onto YouTube. So hello to all my YouTubers. I know you usually watch Jimmy Rants in its archived form, but today, because it is an Ask Me Anything episode, we're letting you guys watch this live. So glad you could be here with us here today on Jimmy Rants. If you missed the live, you can watch it on replay for up to 24 hours on Instagram. After that, pop on over to JimmyRants.com. You can see all the past episodes there. And of course, we do have them over on YouTube. Type in a keyword Jimmy Rants. You will find the show. So guys, today is Ask Me Anything. And literally on Fridays at 11 a.m. Eastern Time, I open the floor to you guys to share what it is that you would like to ask me. So literally, I can answer questions about keto and low-carb diets. I can answer about fasting, cholesterol, podcasting, book writing, what it's like to be famous online, how do you deal with haters, pretty much anything you want to ask. And of course, anything personal that you may have on your mind. Before we get to some stories that I printed out, I do want to answer one personal question that this seems to come up every single week, and I feel like I've addressed it all the time. I want to address it at the top of the show. So if you're new or you haven't followed my work in a while, pay attention because I have answered this literally every single week. This person here, Elizabeth, said, I haven't heard you mention Christine. How is she doing? So it's been over 2 months ago that I made an announcement all over social media that Christine and I are separated and that we ask that you respect our privacy. So that has not changed. That is still the answer I'm going to give. And that's that. But that keeps coming up every single week. And I'm like, people, please, I have answered that until I'm blue in the face. And so every Ask Me Anything, at least the last 3 Fridays, that question has come up. So the answer has not changed. So I hope that helps you out. All right, before we get to your questions, and please go ahead, write your questions down there. Instagram Live, I can see a bunch of you guys are asking questions over here on Facebook Live and on YouTube Live. Go ahead and ask your questions. I don't know if I'll be able to see them or not yet because I know I've had trouble in the past seeing those. But thank you for being here live for this simulcast of Jimmy Rants. But first of all, I wanted to share some quick little bits. This one here is from the Idaho Statesman, and it's all about kind of a ramification of this COVID-19 and how people have changed some dietary habits. Kelloggs, the breakfast cereal company, reported a big sales jump right after the COVID-19 outbreak. And so they said that their earnings per share rose by 23% in the first quarter. Well, keep in mind, January was a whole lot of nothing with COVID-19. February, a whole lot of nothing. We didn't really see in March until about mid-March where they made us all stay in our houses. So really this jump is attributed to the last 2 weeks of the first quarter, 23% total for the first quarter, which means a whole crap load of cereal was sold. Demand for the company's products increased significantly in March as consumers around the world stocked up on packaged foods because of the stay-at-home orders. We are truly living and working in a time unlike any other, says the chairman of Kellogg, Steve Cahillane. The deadly coronavirus brought the nation's economy to a halt, forced millions to shelter at home. Cereal has emerged as a huge comfort food and a common sense necessity for shoppers. Why is cereal common sense? I mean, I get it. It's shelf stable. You can keep it. It's not gonna spoil. But I wouldn't call it a common sense necessity. It lasts for weeks on your pantry shelf, can be eaten with or without milk, comes in a variety of ways. Okay. Of course, you're going to hear Kellogg say all of those things. So, yeah, I mean, it's unfortunate that junk food has to be turned to like that. And it's not just Kellogg's cereals. Frosted Flakes, Corn Flakes, Rice Krispies, and Mini Wheats tend to be the big ones from Kellogg's that people are buying. They're also buying Pringles, Cheez-Its, Pop-Tarts, and Eggos. So that's just a product, I guess, of where people are, that they feel like they need comfort during this time. And so, yeah, I mean, I guess that's just the reality of what we have to deal with here. People will turn to carbohydrates. And I've done some Jimmy Rants before where I explain why we're craving so many carbs right now when we're under a lot of stress. And so this is not unsurprising. It's not surprising. It's just a part of our life right now. I'm concerned that once we get out of the weeds of being forced to stay at home and things get somewhat back to normal again, that people are going to be so heavily addicted to carbs that we're going to have this newfound revolution of people looking for ways to get off the junk food, which is a little bit of job security for people like me, because I've been talking this language for many years. But I don't want to have to teach that all over again. But I'm ready, and I know I'm not the only one. There's a bunch of us out here that are ready to give good information when people need us the most. All right, so that's that story. There's another one here that was a study by this ketogenic doctor. Rabbi Kemapali is his name, and he talks about how immune T-cell augmentation can prevent COVID-19, and he talks about a possible nutritional solution using a ketogenic lifestyle. This was published in the University of Louisville Journal of Respiratory Infections. Definitely go look this up, you guys. Outstanding article explaining all of the ramifications of COVID-19 and how a ketogenic diet could be the first line of defense in preventing it from happening. I thought it was really, really good. He gives a lot of references as to metabolic health, some of the things we've talked about recently on Jimmy Rants, where your insulin resistance level kind of determines the severity of the symptoms that you're going to deal with COVID-19. So really outstanding article. I might do a whole Jimmy Rants just about it, but I did want to bring it to your attention. Go check it out. He also did a companion video on YouTube. So if you're on YouTube, hi all my YouTubers, if you're on there, then make sure you go and look him up. Again, his name Ravi, R-A-V-I, last name Kamapali, K-A-M-E-P-A-L-L-I. Again, I might do a whole Jimmy Rants just on that because it was really fascinating, but I wanted to make sure here on this Ask Me Anything that you guys got first dibs on that one. So let me go to the stored questions, because I always put this on my story on the Thursday before I do the Ask Me Anything of what questions you have for Jimmy Moore. So let's go to those first, and then we'll come over here to Instagram Live, then we'll come to Facebook Live with your questions. So get your questions ready, and then if I have time and I can see your questions YouTube Live, I will come to you next. All right, so let's go to the questions here. My friend Beth loves to come on Jimmy Rants all the time, and she's like, first of all, how am I supposed to know when it's Friday? Yes, right now, it's all bets are off knowing what day it is. I literally have to look at the calendar or on my phone every single day to figure out what day it is, because some days I air my podcast schedule Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday. So Living La Vida Low Carb Tuesday and Wednesday, and then Real Talk on Thursday. So I kind of have those hardwired in my head, but some days I wake up, you guys, especially like on the weekend, a Saturday or a Sunday, and I go, wait, what day is this? And it gets a little bit confusing. I know I'm not alone there, but yes, it's difficult, Beth. You are not wrong. All right, so here's another question. This one is from Karam. What is the easiest way to get started and stick with keto? I can't seem to make it past a couple of days. The main point here, thank you for that question. The easiest way to start and stick with keto, get rid of all the junk in your house. As long as that junk is around, it is going to call your name. And so if the junk is calling your name, don't be surprised when you call back and you put it in your mouth. So get rid of everything that could be a culprit. Now, sometimes that's challenging because you're not the only one in the house and there's other people still eating crappy garbage. So in that route, you want to stock your pantry and especially your refrigerator with as many fresh, real foods as possible. And don't make this hard. I think sometimes people think about, I need to get the macronutrient ratios of lots of fat and moderate protein and low carb, and I need to count this and I need to have it fit within my macros. No, don't do all of that. The easiest way to keep it simple is to keep it simple. Find yourself a fatty piece of meat, preferably, but some kind of a protein that's a fatty meat. Make that the basis of your diet. Then if you want to add in vegetables around it, have the non-starchy vegetables. And then maybe a few nuts and seeds around if you need that, maybe for crunch. And just keep it really, really simple. And this is the thing, people like to make it hard. Well, I need an ice cream recipe and I need a chocolate cake recipe and I need to replace all this crappy garbage with all of this keto version of crappy garbage. If you're falling for that trap, drop it. Drop it right now. Meat, vegetables, fat. Keep it that simple. And if you do it that simple and you start that way, and don't worry about calories, eat to satiety, make sure you're having enough food. Most people undereat when they first start eating keto, so be conscious about eating. Try to make your eating window within like a 6 to 8 hour window. That's going to also help you a lot. So all of these are tips to make it simple so you can get started and stick with it. I would love to know why you can't stick with it beyond a couple of days. If it's hunger, eat more. If it's cravings, that takes time. You don't really get into a full-on ketogenic state for at least 2 to 4 weeks when you start. So just don't skimp on the food when you first start. And then once your body becomes in fat-burning mode, you're able to withstand things a lot more. I can tell you when I first went low carb back in 2004, that first few days was hell. I mean, hell out the wazoo. I went from eating 1,500 to 1,600 grams of carbohydrate a day down to 20, doing the Atkins diet. And I can tell you, those first few days, I literally felt like, and I've never taken drugs in my life, but I can imagine what detoxing from like crack cocaine would be like. I felt like I was getting run through the ringer. And I felt like I was dying. I was literally on the couch, sprawled out, going, oh my God, in this pain now. And it lasted about 3 to 4 days. And by the end of that first week, I finally started to feel a little better. And by the end of the second week, I felt so good that there was no way I was going to stop eating this way. So, not hard if you have a plan in place. Thank you for that question. All right, let's see what we got here. I loved this question. Thank you, Keto NJ. How do you deal with all your workloads? So those of you that know, I come on Jimmy Rants every single day, sometimes twice a day. I do a podcast, the Live and La Vida Low Carb Show. I do another podcast, Real Talk with Jimmy Moore and Dr. Will Cole. I write books for a living. I'm active on social media. I am constantly working. And so, Keto NJ, you have a great question. I will tell you two perspectives. So before I went away on sabbatical, I not only had all those podcasts, I had 3 other podcasts that I was doing as well. And all of those podcasts were running simultaneously. I literally was doing 7 days a week. Work, because I, in the back of my mind, needed to prove my dad wrong. Because all those years ago, I've been talking about this a lot with the childhood trauma. All those years ago, I was told that I would never amount to anything and that I would be an abysmal failure in life, that I should have never been born, all of these really ugly things that I know is not true now. But back in the day, those were the things that were said to me. And I guess indirectly, they motivated me to do what I do now and to be somewhat of a workaholic. Workaholic is a coping mechanism for childhood trauma. And Keto NJ is a therapist, so she knows this already. But for the rest of you, if you tend to be one of those people that go, and you never know an off switch, I would not be surprised if you have some childhood trauma or some kind of trauma in your background, because all of that is you trying to compensate for things that were said to you. So for me, during the sabbatical, I came to terms with a lot of the childhood trauma stuff, and it shifted my attention away from being a workaholic. I still work hard. I mean, I still come on video every single day, and I still do 3 podcasts a week in the middle of the week, but I don't work as hard. Like, I back away from it by design. Even in the midst of the day-to-day, I take little breaks during the day. I never took breaks before the sabbatical. And on the weekends, sometimes I take a whole day off, and I'm okay with that. And I'm going to be, before COVID-19, I was already planning on taking long periods of time, like maybe a week at a time, maybe once a quarter to be off, and then once a year, take a couple months off. So how do I deal with the workload? I'm pretty efficient at what I do. Like, I've gotten into a flow. When I wake up in the morning, I just have a series of things that I do, and they work for me. And my brain is constantly thinking when I'm awake. So I have all these ideas that percolate. And so I don't see what I do as work. That also is a great perspective for those of you that work hard. When you get to the point with what you do not feeling like it's work, I know Tim Ferriss used to talk about this in the 4-Hour Work Week, his book. Go get that book if you've never read it. But he talks about when you do stuff that you love to do, you don't feel like you work. And really, at the end of the day, if you put in the actual work, it shouldn't be more than about 4 hours worth of work that you do. Everything else is just a part of what you do. So coming here on Jimmy Rants, this is not work to me. I have fun on here. I get to be myself. I get to share the knowledge that I've learned. All of those things are positives. I don't feel like I'm working, even though this is providing content currently on 3 different formats simultaneously. It's not work. And so that's what helps me deal a lot with the workload. So thank you for that question. All right, I think that was all the questions that were predetermined, and I see my pinned post got undone, so let me repin it again. So, all right, so I'm going to go to your questions next. So again, Instagram Live first, because this is where we start the show. Then when we come over here to Facebook Live, and if we have time and I can see them, I will come over to you guys. For the first time ever on Jimmy Rants, we're simulcasting live on YouTube. So thank you for being here today for this Ask Me Anything. All right, guys, here on Instagram, welcome in, welcome in. Let's see what questions you have for Mr. Moore today. JimmyRants.com is the website. Beth has the first question, Keto Neogenesis. What are your thoughts on Gymnema to squelch the sugar cravings? I've never heard of Gymnema. I know that there are people out there that are promoting different supplements to help with sugar cravings. I'll tell you who's the gold standard in this is a lady by the name of Julia Ross. She wrote a book called The Craving Cure. I don't remember her mentioning that specific supplement that you're mentioning, Beth, but she has a whole list of little things, and sometimes it's about opening up this like capsule, sticking it under your tongue, and within seconds, cravings are gone. And a lot of times people's cravings also aren't even a supplement thing. It's salt. So put some salt underneath your tongue. I had a person on Facebook just yesterday. Oh my gosh, I'm fasting and I'm feeling hunger and cravings. I'm like, salt underneath the tongue. And she's like, oh yeah, I forgot about that trick. So don't forget that. And this doesn't even have to count when you're fasting. Any point you feel cravings or hunger, rather than giving in to having food, and especially the foods that you don't need, put salt, and I would recommend a high quality salt, something like a Redmond's Real Salt, something like pink Himalayan sea salt. Put it underneath your tongue, let it ooze there, and put a good amount there. You'll let it ooze and then swallow, and usually within seconds, those cravings are gone. Make sure you're also drinking adequate amounts of water, because when you are thirsty and dehydrated, sometimes that manifests as cravings and hunger as well. So hopefully that helps out people who get hunger cravings. Bonnie says, please clear up what pork to eat. I hear they don't, or what they do eat, what pigs eat. I hear they don't eat grass. Pigs eat grains and corn. If so, how healthy is that for us keto people? I worry about corn-fed anything. What's best to buy on pigs and on label? Great question. So I remember when I was a kid, my dad owned restaurants. And so in a restaurant, they have a slop bucket. I know it's disgusting to think about, but it's all the extra little pieces of food that maybe fell on the ground, maybe on the grill, and they just scrape it into a little bin. And then, so the slop bucket had all this food product in there, and it was everything. It was biscuits, it was sausage, it was hamburger, it was whatever. It was green beans, threw it all in there. And then when we took it to the pig trough, we would dump it in there and they would eat all that stuff. So I know that there are specific pig farmers that do feed their pigs like junk, like corn and the things that you're mentioning here. I don't think it's all of them. There is pasture raised when it comes to pigs. I have seen that, and so look for that on the label. If it says pasture raised pork, that means that they were fed properly. They were not given the grains and the corn like you're saying. So it's just like with anything else with grass-fed beef. It's grass-fed, grass-finished, or if they don't put it on there at all, you just have to assume that they were fed grains. So same with the pigs. Thank you for that question. That was a great one, Bonnie. Cariana says, cereal has some serious emotional implications for me. My mom giving me dry Cheerios in church to keep me occupied. Yes, so many of us have like an affinity for cereal because of its emotional connection to our childhood. When I was a kid, you guys are going to laugh at this, but when I was a kid, my favorite cereal was Blueberry Crunch. I don't even know if they still make Blueberry Crunch. Lucky Charms, of course, was out there. I would eat Raisin Bran because that was Mama's favorite, and I was a Mama's boy. But yeah, Blueberry Crunch was my deal. And yeah, there's so many emotions and so many memories associated with cereal, and it is a slippery slope because you start thinking about memories, and yeah, it brings back those. So, Hiona says, how long until meat is going to be illegal? Ooh. What a great question. So I've been doing a lot of Jimmy Rants lately about the meat shortages taking place because the various plants that have shut down, Tyson and Smithfield Farms. I also did a Jimmy Rants just yesterday all about a meat tax being proposed around the world, and that there is this mission by the plant-based burger companies that by the year 2035, they want to eliminate meat consumption altogether. Illegal, I'm not so sure they're going to get away with that. Number one, if they try to make eating meat illegal, they going to have a revolution on their hands. And that's just the keto and carnivore community. Never mind, 97 to 98% of the population, they eat meat or some kind of animal-based food. So I don't think people are going to put up with that. I'm hoping wiser heads will prevail in this debate over meat. It's why the vegans have pushed so hard to make meat the boogeyman. And if you make something the boogeyman and you repeat it often enough, they hope that the message gets through, that their agenda gets through. They are such a small segment of the population, vegetarians and vegans, very small portion of the population. I can't imagine ever living in a world where meat was not on the table. Literally, it's the only way to get complete proteins in your diet. Literally, so many things in meat, more than just protein and fat. People just look at a hunk of meat and, oh, look at that fatty protein that's unhealthy for you. And what they don't realize, there's so many great micronutrients. Look it up sometime, you guys. Look up online, just Google nutrition in meat, nutrition in beef specifically. Google that and you're going to see all these vitamins and micronutrients that you didn't even realize was found in meat. And especially when it's grass-fed meats, the nutritional profile is undeniable and it's far more nutrient dense than all the vegetables put together in the world. Successfully Spiritual says, how do you get your ideas for content and decide what to present? That's a great question too. This brain never stops. I literally wake up in the morning and I'm not even like trying to think of things and things pop in my head. I've just always been that personality type that when I just start thinking, things start flowing. And of course, I'm reading articles and I'm watching social media and seeing what other people are saying. and it'll trigger a thought on another kind of message, not the specific one that I'm necessarily reading. And then my brain goes down rabbit holes. So down that rabbit hole along the way, I go, oh, that would be something to do a Jimmy Rants on. And so that's kind of the way my brain works. It's why I'm able to be so prolific as an author, is I'm constantly thinking about ideas. And I've said this before on a previous Ask Me Anything. People were asking about writing books and how I am so prolific. I'm like, right now, I'm thinking of about 9 or 10 books in my head, and I'm already writing them in my head. That's just the way my brain works. And so I never have a lack of ideas. And I also am not one of these people that likes to do fluff on social media. You guys know those people that do that. They get some image and it's just some nothing comment on their post. I'm like, what was the point of that? Like, that's a waste of time. Why don't you do something with significance? Now, not everything needs to be serious, and it's not what I'm talking about, but you do need to at least add value. Like, when people come to my pages, I want you to see something that's of value, and you leave that smarter than when you first came to the page, or more informed than when you first came to the page, or a call to action to do something. That's the point of every single thing that I do. And if I don't do that, then I feel like I failed you. And so I don't run out of ideas. I don't know why. I just have constantly, and I've been at this for 15 years plus now, and I don't have any signs of slowing down. So I'm very blessed to have the brain that I have that can think of ideas and think of new ways to say things. I think that's why I've been successful, as people engage in that really well. And in the book form, I'm able to listen to complex things and then translate it into everyday language. Then once I can translate it to people, then people read the translated kind of version of the sciencey stuff, and then they go, oh, that sounds interesting. Then they get it at a basic level, which is what cholesterol clarity and keto clarity were about, giving you a basic level knowledge of those subjects. And then people are like, oh, you got me interested in then going and reading the complex stuff. So mission accomplished. That's what I'm trying to do here. But thank you for that question. Holly wants to know how my chickens are. So I've got 20 backyard chickens, and they're doing wonderful. They've been pumping out some eggs. Like, I get probably 12 to 14 eggs a day. And I'm eating quite a few eggs, trying to conserve money right now. And so love my chickens. They are a hoot and a handy to watch. They're digging up my backyard. They love this time of year because the grass is growing up, so they're able to eat the grass, and you see them eating bugs. What's funny is when, like, there's a bug floating like a foot above the ground, you'll see them like chase around like a little cat chasing a bug, and they'll just chase them. And I saw one the other day. They jumped up like 3 feet in the air and like ate one of the bugs out of the air. It was like, whoa, I should have been rolling video when they were doing that. Yeah, they're fun creatures. If you've never had backyard chickens, get you some backyard chickens. They are pretty cool. But thank you, Holly. Harfusi says, this is not a question, but I missed the background music you used to have. On the post-production one on YouTube, is that what you're talking about? So, of course, here on the live version of Jimmy Rants, we don't do any background music. I know when we replay the audio version of this show on the Live and La Vida Low Carb show, we do that on Tuesdays. We have the best of Jimmy Rants on Tuesday. And so my producer does throw in the little background music. We did get a few complaints that people said the background music was a little bit distracting. And so we don't do that as long anymore. I think what he does is he has it on the first like 5 minutes, and then he fades out the music because people were complaining that the music was distracting to the message. So we listen. So maybe that's what's going on there. Anita says, I grew up on a pig farm. They eat everything. They really do. They're like vultures. We would turn them into the garden to clean up the plants. Yeah, that's a great way to do it. That is for sure. Bonnie says, what's your thoughts on a COVID vaccine? I feel keto will help prevent severe sickness. I don't want the vaccine. I want our diet only. Your opinion? Yeah, I'm not going to get a COVID-19 vaccine. I'm not an anti-vaccinator kind of person. I know there's a lot of anti-vaccination people out there. I'm not that, but I feel like I am doing things good for my health because of keto. And I finally got out of the insulin resistance category last year, at least on my blood work. According to a functional doctor that I went to, all my blood work shows I'm not insulin resistant anymore. So I'm not thinking I'm Superman and not going to get sick from it, but I'm definitely not going to take a vaccine, which has its concerns for me personally. If somebody chooses to take the vaccine, that's great. I think it's kind of hilarious that we're all waiting for a vaccine before we do anything. The vaccine is not going to be the be-all, end-all in this. It's just not. And if we make our immunity and our immune system stronger, then at the end of the day, that's what's going to kill off COVID-19, not a vaccine. That's my opinion. Tanya says, all your ideas are a gift. Oh, well, thank you. I try to bring as many variety of things as possible. And sometimes I get people as, well, you shouldn't talk about that. And I'm like, you know what? I'm just talking. And if you don't like it, move on to the next person. And if you don't like something I'm saying, that's cool. Let's have a conversation. But unfortunately, what usually happens when people disagree with some of the things that I say, they get ugly and personal and call me fat and stupid and ignorant and all these other things. And I'm like, all right. And that adds to the discussion. How? They don't. Bonnie says you're glowing today with excitement and passion. I hope I do that every day, Bonnie. I don't hide how I feel because I think people need to see when you eat a healthy diet and you are healthy, even if you have extra weight on the body, you glow, you have vibrance, you have energy. And one thing you cannot say about me is I don't have energy. All right, Sam has a great question. How long did it take you so that you're no longer insulin resistant? So those of you that know in my work, I've been talking about having insulin resistance for a little while, even after being successful on the Atkins diet and then low carb and keto. I had been insulin resistant for a little while. And it was just last year that on the blood work, it finally showed up that I'm no longer considered insulin resistant, at least pathologically insulin resistant. I still have a few skin tags on the body, which is another sign. But all of the blood work, insulin has now gotten into the single digits. Blood sugar stays very under control. Triglycerides under 100, HDL over 50. All of the kind of key metabolic health signs are in a good place. And so the only one that was kind of iffy was I was on the borderline of leptin. So leptin is another one of those hormones. If you missed my show yesterday with Dr. Will Cole, we do a show on Thursdays called Real Talk, a podcast. So go to llvlc.com. You can see and hear that show. But we talked about hormones. And we brought up leptin and leptin resistance. People give a lot of credence to insulin and insulin resistance, but they're not really giving a lot of talk about leptin. Of course, Dr. Ron Rosedale is the guy when it comes to leptin. And so go look up his stuff, Rosedale. And he's talked about leptin since even before I was online. So way ahead of his time in talking about this stuff. But that was the only marker that was kind of on the borderline of what needed to be lower. But all of the insulin resistance markers are well within range, functional range. Juan wants to know, what do you do to keep busy at home and keep you safe? Well, at home, I'm home all the time. So this is not abnormal for me. The only thing that's changed is usually I can up and go wherever I want and come back home. So working from home, it's called working. That's what I've been doing. The funny part was this all happened right after I got off sabbatical. So I was on sabbatical for 6 months where, all I did was just chill out at home. So everybody trying to adjust to being at home and chilling out, that was my life for 6 months before I got back, and then COVID-19 happened a couple weeks later. So I have a pretty unique advantage because I was already used to chilling out and I'm already used to working from home. So this wasn't a big deal for me. Bonnie says, I got a great t-shirt idea. Move on. Yeah, I should get a bunch of t-shirts that say, Jimmy Rants, move on. What's your favorite nutrition book from the past couple of years? Says Hiona. Oh, wow. Past couple of years. There are so many good books that have come out historically, but the past couple of years, man, that's a toughie. I'm trying to think like, because I don't think of books and when they come out, I just think of the titles. Past couple of years, like, and you're talking about nutrition books specifically. I guess it would have to be some of the carnivore books. I think Paul Saladino's book, you guys, that just came out, The Carnivore Code, is fantastic. Like, if you're not carnivore, but you want to learn some of the principles of why people that eat carnivore are carnivore, go get Paul Saladino's book, The Carnivore Code. I guess that would be the one. All right, let's pop over here to my Facebook page. Thank you, Instagram, and thank you, YouTube Live. You guys have never gotten to see me live here, so thank you for hanging out with us here today on this live simulcast here on Jimmy Rants. But I'm gonna go to my Facebook page next. I know you guys have lots of questions in store for me, so let me scroll back and see what you got. Rhonda says, what, in your opinion, is the best and fastest way to heal severe metabolic damage? Get your inflammation lower and get your insulin and blood sugar lower as quickly as you can. Now, obviously, for some people, that's going to take time. If you already have disease progression, sometimes the disease has progressed so much, chronic disease, that you can't reverse it, or you can't reverse it quickly. So keep that in mind. Be graceful to where you've come from. Don't think, well, I have type 2 diabetes and I have an autoimmune condition or 2 or 3, and I have had a heart attack in my past, and I've had this and I've had that. I went keto, and tomorrow you're like, why hasn't it healed it yet? So you have to keep in mind the context of where you're coming from. If you're generally healthy and you haven't had much issues other than maybe a little bit of elevated blood sugar, maybe a little bit of elevated insulin and inflammation levels, then you should be able, with a ketogenic diet, a real food diet, a paleo carnivore diet, one of these diets, you should be able to bring those numbers back under control, and within maybe a year or two, see healing from it. But for others, you may never see full healing. Now, does that mean you shouldn't go keto or carnivore or one of these other diets? No, it means that if your goal is full healing and you've already damaged your body beyond the point of full healing, become the best version of yourself you possibly can. It's what I've had to resign myself to, that I did some pretty crappy stuff in my diet all throughout my late teens and all throughout my 20s into my early 30s. That doesn't come without consequence. So for me, it might mean I carry a little bit extra weight on my body, and yet all of my pathological signs, all the blood work that I've had done, show that I have pretty good metabolic health. And that's what you focus on. So depends on what you mean by healing metabolic damage. You can heal internally, even if externally it doesn't look like you fully healed. Norma wants to know, was the situation with KetoCon ever resolved? So the situation, just to recap, I did a whole Jimmy Rants on this, is KetoCon was canceled for 2020, and the organizers made the executive decision that they were not going to offer refunds, but instead give all participants that signed up credit to come in 2021. Now, let me give you some behind the scenes. That is a major financial hit for them, because it pretty much means this year they lost money. Even though they kept the money, there were lots of expenses involved, but they lost money because of that. Next year, with all these people basically coming for free, they're going to lose money again. Now, they're hoping they make up for it by having additional attendees that did not sign up for this year to come next year, so that they then have the revenue to pay for the facility. But as far as I know, nothing changed. I know they threw out there some past videos from previous KetoCon conferences to the people that signed up. I think they did some kind of live. They've done a few things trying to appease people. Unfortunately, a lot of people got hurt because they wanted money back and blah, blah, blah. But I understand, as someone who has done conferences, you can't just pull money out of the air that's not there. So resolved, probably not to the satisfaction of a lot of people. But at the end of the day, I think there's people that just got their feelings hurt, and it was handled very, very poorly. They should have gotten a PR company to help them with that, but they did not. And unfortunately, I have not heard from the KetoCon people. Robin, who runs the thing, right before all the you-know-what broke loose, She called me, and I was not available at the time, and she was supposed to call back. I never got to talk to her. I guess she was going to call me about this. And then since then, I haven't heard anything from her. So I don't know what's going on. I do know a lot of people are going to have bad blood towards them, and I hope it doesn't mean that it's the end of KetoCon forever, but I would not be surprised if we never see that event ever again. Let's see. Berkeley says, I fell off the wagon, the keto wagon for a while. What do you think the best approach is to starting over? Fast then keto, or just eat keto? I do want to drop those pounds I regained. Will just eating keto work? Yet, don't fast before you keto unless you like pain. I did this on the Keto Connect video here on YouTube recently. They asked me that question about whether somebody had a question about whether you should fast to go into keto. And I'm like, no. You fast coming from like crappy garbage, you're going to be so hungry and you're going to probably end up binging. So instead of fasting and then going keto, do the exact opposite. Get keto adapted. Probably it'll take another 2 to 4 weeks to get back in that fat burning mode. And then if you want to add in intermittent and or extended fasting at that point, do it that way. But go back to the basics like we talked about on this question over here, Berkeley. Get back to the basics. Basically protein, vegetables, fat. Get back to those basics. Keep it as real food as possible. Get rid of this. Get rid of the snacks. Eat within a pretty good window of 6 to 8 hours. Ultimately, maybe early on you need to eat more frequently than that, but that's your ultimate goal. Rhonda says, can you explain why someone would have high blood sugar over 150 when extended fasting on day 5, and what can you do about it? If you have high blood sugar, listen carefully to this, guys. This is an important question. Thank you for this, Rhonda. If you have high blood sugar to the level of 150 on day 5 of an extended fast, get ready. Celebrate. Celebrate? What do you mean celebrate, Jimmy? Celebrate, because that's your body healing. Because if you've not taken in any nutrition and you're only drinking water and you're only eating salt as a part of your fast, and you see a 150 on day 5 of a full-on water salt only fast, it means there's release of fat stores in your body that's going into your bloodstream. And in those fat stores, Dr. Fung and I talked about this in our book, The Complete Guide to Fasting. In those fat stores are pockets of sugar. And remember, what the fat stores are for is not to make you look grotesque, it's to protect your body. And so it protects your body by binding up these things that it knows is harming you. So when you release those fat stores, of course, you're going to have pockets of sugar in there. So when you tested, Rhonda, and you got that 150 on day 5, that's an indication that fat stores released, that glucose got released into your body, and now it's clearing it out of the system. Maybe at that moment when you tested was the exact moment when that was flowing through your bloodstream before it got cleared through urine and sweat and all the other ways that the glucose would be used. So celebrate. That's a very good thing. There's nothing to do about it other than rock on, girl. Keep doing it. Keep releasing those fat stores. I've been on day 12 of an extended fast. I did 21 days, 3 times, water and salt only. And on day 12, I popped, and for me, this was high for me, like a 130, and it was the same thing, pockets of sugar being released. Always, always, always keep in mind, context is everything. Judy wants to know, how many times a day do you usually eat? I used to eat OMAD, 1 meal a day, but read that it's harder for your body to utilize that much protein at once. Well, I don't worry about the utilization of the protein as much as what is my body telling me to do. So for me, I fall into very easily a 2 meal a day, 1 to 2 meal a day. Some days I'll have a meal. And so this morning I had ribeye with eggs. So I had 4 of my backyard chicken eggs cooked in butter. And then I had a ribeye that I grilled out on my grill out front. And so I know having that meal, it was somewhere around 8:30 in the morning when I ate, I won't have to eat again till maybe 4:30, 5:30. Or I might get to the end of the day and go, you know what? I'm still not hungry. That was good enough for the whole day. So I don't think there is a perfect way to eat other than listen to your body. And if you need more nutrition, eat. I think people, they put themselves into a box thinking, well, I'm supposed to be eating OMAD. And so if I eat more than one meal, oh my gosh, I failed. I'm going, yeah, don't do that to yourself. But for me personally, Judy, it's about 1 to 2 times a day. Sally wants to know, do you have any books coming out? So none in 2020. For all the obvious reasons, this COVID-19 has kind of messed up a lot of schedules of all kinds of things coming out. But I had not planned on doing a book this year. I literally just got back from sabbatical. I will tell you, on my heart and mind, I've got several topics I want to write about, one of which is the childhood trauma stuff. And people are like, well, what do you have knowledge-wise about childhood trauma? And you don't have a right to do that, and blah, blah, blah. And I'm like, well, I went through it, and experientially, I have a lot of knowledge. And people are like, well, you can't write about that. You don't. And I'm like, what happened to keto? What was my knowledge about keto? I lost weight. I got healthy on a ketogenic diet. And that's my claim to fame with keto. And yet, look at all the books I've written in keto now. And those of you that have read Keto Clarity, do you think I was chimpy and skimpy on the science when it came to keto and Keto Clarity? No. We put 186 references all about the ketogenic diet, scientific references in the back of the book by design. And so I would give the same treatment to childhood trauma as that. So that's probably the next book on the horizon, but it's probably not until at least 2021, maybe even 2022 before that book would be out. I'm also looking at other options besides my current publisher for doing that book, just always keeping the door open to those opportunities. But I do have more books in me. Thank you for that question, Sally. Kira says, sometimes it takes a non-doctor to explain complex things to make it more digestible to regular people. Thank you for doing that. Yeah, that literally, when I pitched my book ideas, Kira, to my publisher back in 2012, I was called by the CEO of Victory Bell Publishing, and they're like, you want to write books for us? Yeah. So I knew my niche, I knew my lane, because people say stay in your lane. My lane was, I know how to hear complex issues and translate. Now, sometimes when you translate, you simplify, and the hard-nosed people go, well, that's not exactly right. I'm like, you know what? You need to give people a starting point. And literally when, before Keto Clarity and Cholesterol Clarity came out, nobody had a starting point for those topics. They didn't know where to start. They didn't understand all the complexity that was in all of the fancy schmancy sciencey books. So I'm like, okay, I can translate it. And even in some of the reviews on Amazon, it's so funny. I get 2 simultaneously reviews that are the diametrically opposite. I get some people that say, Keto Clarity, this is the most complex book I've ever read in my entire life. It doesn't make any sense at all. And then you get the opposite side. This is the most boring book. This is all well-known knowledge out there on the internet. I don't understand why people get this book. It's so stupid, but it's so easy. I don't understand why this book was even written. So as an author, you see both of those diametrically opposed viewpoints, and you go, I did the right book. Because if you get that kind of response, it means you struck a chord that hit exactly where it needed to go. Maria wants to know, is it true that having backyard chickens creates a rodent issue? Do you have rodents, mice, or rats in your backyard? Never once have I seen any of that. Since I cleaned up my coop and had this, I call it the Taj Mahal built. Now, when I first started and we put out the chicken feed, and we had like a little makeshift kind of tent for them, yes, I saw a rat. We used to have cameras out there watching, and I could see a rat on the camera. But since it's cleaned up and I'm a little better efficient at it, no, I don't have those issues anymore. But thank you for that. That's a great question. Do you know any online lipid testing sites that could really give me a non-granular breakdown of my LDL to find out my LDL versus LDL-B? The pattern A versus pattern B. The best one that you can run online is going to be hard because you got to have the blood pulled, Kira. So you still have to go to a LabCorp office, but online, there are a bunch of online sites that let you run lab testing. The name of the test you want to run is called an NMR lipoprofile test. And so NMR lipoprofile test. And you can run that. I use a website called privatemdlabs.com. There's anylabtestnow.com. There's a bunch of these online lab things. There's about 6 states where it's illegal to use these, but I live in South Carolina. I run them all the time. It is out of pocket. Private MD Labs, I know, lets you use health savings account dollars for the purposes of this, and it's not covered by insurance. So that's the only thing. But you definitely still have to go to a lab to get the blood pulled. So hope that helps. All right. I promised you, YouTube, I was going to try to come see you. So let's see if I can see your comments. They've never made it easy to be able to see the comments. So let's see if I can scroll back and see your comments. In fact, let me pull you in closer so I can see you. Hello, you guys. Glad to see you live, says Kim Cole. Thank you. And it disappears. See, this is the problem. It disappears if you don't keep it moving. Where is the first place you're going to go once home order is lifted? Oh, Karen, and thank you, Karen. You're one of my regulars. First place, wow. I mean, I don't have any specific place I want to go. I do know I want to do like a hug tour because there's so many people I have missed hugging. So I don't know. That's a good question. Kim Cole says, what do you think about eating according to a circadian rhythm? No eating at night. Just saw a video by Dr. Dorothy Sears on the DAPS channel. Yeah, I think that's great. I don't eat after usually like 5 p.m. If I eat too much later than 5 p.m., then I don't do well. I don't sleep well. Mr. Vegas, my question is about eating through your satiety signals. Ted Naiman, who I respect, swears that protein is the most satiating nutrient, but isn't fat the nutrient that sends the signal to the brain? I think it's a mix of both fat and protein, with all due respect to my friend Ted Naiman. I don't think it's protein alone. I do think it's a healthy mix of fat and protein, and that mix, you guys, is going to differ from person to person, highly individualized. Nurse Feelgood, have you heard of Z-Dog MD? Oh, he's hilarious. He does videos on a lot of controversial issues and is such an advocate for nurses. He has a video on the Dr. Erickson video. So yes, Nurses Feels Good. Thank you for that. Yes, I'm very well aware of Z-Dog. If you have never seen Z-Dog on video, he is so hilarious. He is a doctor himself, and wow. Woo! Dude is just like, I don't want to ruin it for you because he's pretty amazing on video. But let's just say you're not bored watching his videos. And yeah, so I'm very well aware of his work, and he is a great advocate for nurses and medical professionals everywhere. All right, let's see if there's any last second questions here on Instagram. What kind of books do you enjoy reading when you're reading outside of health? Well, thank you, Beth. I am a huge John Grisham novel fan. I loved The Firm. I loved literally all of the John Grisham early days books. So I love that. In fact, with The Firm, by the way, I lived in Memphis, Tennessee for a year before I moved to Virginia to go to grad school and then down here to South Carolina. And when I lived in Memphis, I worked at a law firm called McDonald Boyd. They're probably still there today in downtown Memphis. And I worked as a runner at 20 years old. I worked as a runner for them. And in the midst of that, Hollywood came to Memphis, Tennessee with Tom Cruise, and they did The Firm. And so while they were filming The Firm, right there where I had to walk every single day, I'd go from the law firm and I would take briefs from our lawyers up to the courthouse, which was about 10 blocks away. I would have to literally walk on the set of The Firm every single day. And I had 2 instances that were pretty cool to talk about. One was I got on the elevator. In the building I was in is where they were filming all the little lawyer scenes. They were on like the 4th, 5th floor, and we were up on, 10, 11, 12 was the top of the building. And so that's where our firm was. And then they were filming down low. So one day I get on the elevator, and lo and behold, look who comes on the elevator with Jimmy Moore. A very large black man and a very short white man. And the very short white man was Tom Cruise. He had Sunglasses on. Dude is short too. Like I'm 6'3", so I get it. Most people are shorter than me, but he was way short. He had to easily be like, I don't know, 5'4", 5'3", 5'4", little bitty guy. But I remember looking over and just kind of going, "Oh my God, that's Tom Cruise," and he was just like, "Sup, sup, Tom Cruise? How are you?" Didn't say a word, but that was kind of a cool experience. My first brush with a famous person. And then when I was taking one of the briefs to the courthouse, I got in the way of one of their scenes, like where they were filming, and one of the producers came running over at me and said, "Don't look at the camera. Just keep walking straight ahead. Don't look at the camera." So I inadvertently became an extra in their film, just doing my job. So that was kind of a little side note of working for a law firm. But thank you, Beth. That was a great question. You or anyone writing a book about trauma, you will relive a lot, but you will also heal. Can't wait till you write the book. Well, I've already relived a lot of my trauma. So, yeah, I don't think I'll have a lot of trouble writing that book because I've already processed a lot of the emotion of it. But thank you. Thank you. Rhonda wants to know, are there any thoughts on regular strong carb cravings in the evenings when there are no cravings at any other time of the day? If you're having carb cravings in the evening, it could be that your blood sugar is dropping unnecessarily. I would say for somebody like you that's having those, Rhonda, go ahead and have a little bit of a snack of something that's high fat, maybe a few nuts like raw almonds or something, or like a little piece of cheese, just something that would squelch that really fast. That could be helpful. We're running out of time, you guys, and I got a few more questions. Jay Cups, did you end up on the cutting room floor, or could we see you in the movie? No, I'm not in the firm. I was on the cutting room floor. I am in a very famous movie with George Clooney, you guys. If you've never seen, it was the football movie that came out a few years ago called Leatherheads. I'm the doorman about 15 minutes into the movie when George Clooney is coming up on his little motorcycle. He goes around this little fountain area. I'm in the front of a hotel. I'm the doorman. And I told this story before on Jimmy Rants Ask Me Anything, so I won't repeat it here. But that's the only movie that I was in. I was on the screen for about 10 seconds. So that's big when you're an extra in a film to be on screen for that long. I did have a voice part that I was supposed to say on the screen to George Clooney, but then they cut it out of the scene. So pretty interesting thing. So, all right, guys. Thank you for being here. This was a fun Ask Me Anything, and I loved every minute of being here with you guys here today. I think you shared that one in one of your books or podcasts. Yes, Jacob's 21 Life Lessons from Living La Vida Low Carb. It's available on Amazon. I did write in there about that experience with George Clooney in Leatherhead, so that was a lot of fun. So, all right, guys. So thank you to everyone here on Instagram Live, on Facebook Live, and for the very first time ever, we went live right here on YouTube. So thank you guys for being here today. I really enjoyed hanging out with all of you as always. You can enjoy this content. We try to come on here most days, going live at 11 a.m. Eastern Time, Monday through Friday, and sometimes extra time. So thank you for being here today on Jimmy Rants. Go follow me over on Instagram. I am at Living Low Carb Man, LIVINLOWCARBMEN. Once you are there, engage live in the content. Follow all my work there. If you missed any of the past episodes, pop on over to JimmyRants.com. All the past episodes are there. We also put them all up on YouTube. Shout out to all my YouTubers. You can watch the replay there as well. Type in the keyword Jimmy Rants. You will find the show. So guys, thanks for being here today. We will be back again probably over the weekend with a few Jimmy Rants episodes. So until next time, we'll see you then.